Holiday stress is the topic and the article that I picked out. And here's basically what it says. It's a poll that was taken, and 1 in 6 parents, which really isn't that high, but just under 20% people, holidays are very stressful.
Yep.
I think it should be higher than that. But
I think so too. But this
I don't
poll
think
was
they
taken
did a
last year.
nationwide poll. I think it was only in the area.
It was a little over 2,000 people, but it says 1 in 6 surveyed in a new national poll. It says it's national. Say they're stressed out. Mothers are twice as likely than fathers to acknowledge and have stress levels during the holiday. And so we'll need to unpack that one here in a minute. So it's 1 in 6. 1 in 5 say that affects how much their kids enjoy the season. So that's not a good thing.
No.
When your kids can feel the stress.
And your dog.
1 in 4 parents say stress is tied to placing unrealistic expectations on themselves to create a joyful holiday. So I think we can all identify with that. You guys have been married I know you're not married to each other, but you've been married for how long? How long have you been
4
married?
years.
4 years?
2.
2? Has it been 2? It's longer than that.
Yep.
So that's
well,
good.
I got scared. I had to think about it.
So 2 years, 4 years, 20.
We haven't been married 20 years.
Oh, really? I thought you were.
No, we've been married 12 years.
12. Okay. 28.
Well, there you go. You've got
I
the
just kinda
whole
trumped everybody.
spectrum
We're
here.
in the
Yes, that's right.
gamut.
You were married a little bit later. We were married when we were 12. So we were really young.
Ew.
Yes.
That's gross.
So give us some examples of how the holidays have been stressful for y'all. And this is good because we've been married for 2 years, 4 years, 12, 28. We're covering a lot of
Lots of
territory.
ground.
Variety.
Yes. So what's been stressful for y'all with the holidays?
Well, I think for me specifically for the holidays, it's not necessarily the events or family. I don't. We actually have a really healthy system of how to do holidays with family. I think for me specifically is work, especially during Christmas time and holiday time. We have a lot of events that specifically at the church happen, and being a support ministry that we have to be at a lot of these things. Yep. And so my time at home during the holidays dwindles quite a bit. And so it's trying to balance that work life and home life, especially during the holidays. And that's a major stressor. And I think the beginning of our marriage, that was a big stressor for us, was just trying to figure out like, okay, I got to go back to work after dinner. And it's like I'm working till 1 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
And trying to balance that. But now we've come down to like, okay, there's more important things than just work. So
right. Well, that's good. So work for you. How about Allie? How about for y'all?
I think our biggest heartbreaking conversations have been over the holidays, like what we're going to do. Michael's family, his immediate family is mostly in Little Rock area, but the rest of his family, and he has a small family, and I come from a very large family, and they're all up here. The rest of his family is in Dallas. And so when we first started dating, they don't have like very strong traditions when it comes to the holidays, and my family does. So we do the same thing every Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving we're a little more flexible with, just because we had like 40 people is almost a little too much for your Thanksgiving dinner, and so that's what we're pushing these years.
that's a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. People's houses are seeming to get smaller these days. So
No, you're just seeming to get more people.
yeah. But Christmas
case,
is a
just
really
larger.
big deal. Like my parents have always hosted Christmas. Even when my grandparents were alive, they always came to our house. So being at my home on Christmas Day is really important to me. And our first year of marriage, I think, was kind of, I cried a lot around the holidays, just because I had to understand that, yes, while Michael's family is flexible, it's important for him to spend Christmas Day, even though it doesn't carry any weight. And as far as traditions go, it's still important for him to be around his family on the holidays. And so learning how do we balance that? And I have such a fear. I'm fearful of a lot of things, but of traveling around the holidays, just weather, and there's a lot of like very depressed people who drink a lot. And so we had lost somebody when I was growing up who died in a car accident on Christmas Eve from a drunk driver. And so those things like haunt me as we're like on the road and it's 10 p.m. and I'm just, glued to the chair and just hold on to the side of the car traveling. But we've made it work, and we're trying to like rotate. We spend Thanksgiving with one family and then Christmas with the other. And I know a lot of people do that, and I think that's kind of the best way we've found it to work. It hasn't worked right so far, just with illnesses and family and COVID, all these things get in the way. So at some point we'll have a really good routine down, but we have both learned how to be flexible and communicate emotions during the holidays, because those are really high. And just explain like what's special to us. And we know at some point that'll change. Like if we're able to have children, when we get to have our own family, all of that changes. So trying to figure out this pattern that works for us in this season of our lives.
Yep. You made a good point too, because it changes. One dynamic changes and you've got to reassess and everything. How about for y'all, James?
Oh, goodness. Well, so, I said we talked early on in our marriage because of our premarital counseling about things like the holidays. Because for me, growing up, we didn't live close to family. We were an hour and a half away from the closest family members. We had like cousins that lived by us, but not people we would, do holidays with. And so as a little kid, what always stressed me out was, loved Christmas morning, because you get up early Christmas morning, go into the living room, see all the toys, play with your stuff. But it was short-lived because we had to pack up and go to grandma's. And so it was always kind of like, okay. And as a little kid, you just kind of deal with it. But the older you get, the more like, do we have to do this again? And so one of the things Andrew and I talked about, because by the time we got married, we were both kids of divorced families. And so we knew we weren't going to do, and at that point, we didn't know we weren't going to be able to have kids, but we hope to adopt now. But we weren't going to do the whole marathon of go here, then go there, then go there. And then no, we weren't going to do that. And so we said, when we got married, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do Thanksgiving. And also it's worth noting that like Andrea's family, especially after my mom died, our family traditions kind of like broke a little bit. And so my family wasn't always super good about doing holidays together, or if they were, it was always Sunday at noon. Well, I work for a church, so I can't do something Sunday at noon because it's an hour and a half to get there. And so by the time we get there, it would be over. So we didn't get to do a lot of that. But Andrea's family is a lot closer. So we had said, we're not going to do this thing of going to your mom's and your dad's. Like we're not doing that, especially when we have kids. We're not dragging our kids from here to turn around and do something there, because it's like, as an adult, you're eating lunch at noon and then eating dinner at 3. I'm like, I'm sorry. No, that's just a waste of our time. So we had said Thanksgiving is going to be someone's family. And my family never did Christmas on Christmas. We always did it like a week later. But again, Sundays. So we said we're going to spend Christmas Eve with either her mom or her dad, and whoever we didn't do Christmas Eve with, we're going to do Christmas Day with. And so we kind of said that's our rule, right? We're going to do that. Well, I remember the very first Thanksgiving after we got married, we were driving somewhere, and it was coming up on Thanksgiving, and we were talking about the plans. And I said, yeah, we're going to go to your mom's for Thanksgiving. She goes, oh yeah, and then we have to stop by my dad's. And I was like, wait, what? And she's just kind of sitting in the car giving me that look like, crap, I was hoping you forgot about the conversation that we had. And the thing is, like, it annoyed me for sure, and I was upset about it because I was like, we said together, we decided we're not doing this, but it was only that one time, and it was kind of one of those things. It was hard for her. It was hard for Andrea to do that because she's so close to her family. So it's not easy to set those boundaries, but like we said we were going to do it, and we stuck to it. That first year we didn't compromise. We said, hey, we decided as a family we're not doing that. So we're going to spend Thanksgiving with mom this year. We'll catch you next year, kind of a thing. A lot of that has become a lot easier for us since we moved because we're not local, and given work schedules and stuff, it's hard for us to travel 3.5, 4 hours to go do that for holidays. We just don't. It's not something we're likely to do, but it was great. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of with David too, though. Like a lot of the stressors for us have been with my family. Well, you never join us for holidays. You do them Sundays at noon. I can't do that. This is my job. Like if we scheduled the family Christmas on Tuesday at 11 a.m., you probably couldn't do it either because you have to go to work. Yeah. I'm like, so don't blame me about the fact that I work for a church and I'm not going to be able to be there by noon. Yeah. An hour and a half away from where I live, kind of thing.
There's a lot of factors. I mean, work, it obviously impacts all of us. My wife's in the medical field. So actually my role on staff at the church makes me a little bit more flexible because I'm not having to run the cameras and the sound and the lights and all that kind of stuff. And so, but with hers, she can't be very far from her work. And so we're a little bit more tied closely. When we were younger, it was easier because we lived far away from home. I mean, we live South Korea,
When you were
Canada.
younger, you're experiencing what we experience now.
Yeah. So now that we're back here, we've had to really think through everything that you guys did, your first couple of years of marriage. And so, so the dynamics with us is both working full time, makes it a little bit challenging. Our parents are older. They're having a harder time traveling, things like that. But figuring all that out can be stressful. In this poll, here are the top stressors. Extra shopping, holiday tasks, 31%. That's how they responded. So, which I thought was interesting, but I guess I can understand that. When we were younger, trying to fit budget, especially with kids, and then trying to get stuff for our parents.
I think that makes it a little bit easier nowadays, though. Most of the time it's online.
Yeah,
It's just the shipping.
so true. Yeah,
The stress of
this
getting
poll
it
was
in.
taken last year. So, yeah.
It's the stress of, I think it's partly the stress of the financial burden.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you got to buy all this money. You got to
Which
spend all
was
this money.
another one underneath it, the household finances.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, 30% was keeping family healthy. Then household finances at 29%. Planning for family gatherings. That's probably what we've talked mostly
Yeah.
about. Making special holiday meals. That can be stressful, especially if you're hosting.
If you stop making stuffing, then you're going to be fine.
Keep the yams.
It's the cheapest
Advice.
thing you can make.
If
It
you
is
are
the
not
cheapest thing you can
hosting, help wash the stinking dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we've hosted several times for Christmas, oh my goodness, it was a full-time job from morning to night. You're either cooking or you're cleaning.
Yep.
And when your siblings aren't helping with washing the dishes,
Gosh, I hate siblings so much.
They're terrible.
Call them out by name.
the last one, criticism from family members about holiday plans.
There you go, James.
So yes, so we've hit several of those. So I think we've talked about the first question I had on here. We've all encountered some of these. Which one jumped out most to y'all? Is there anything you're like, oh yeah, okay, maybe that one was more of an issue?
I was surprised that shopping was number one.
Yeah.
I felt like that would be a little bit lower compared to like plans and all that other stuff. But I guess I'm not a parent, so I don't know how stressful that can be.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
It
does
can
that.
be stressful when you're trying, like I'm not a parent, so I'm not trying to speak from that angle,
Sure.
but it can be stressful because we all have that at least one person that you have no idea what to get them.
yeah,
And they're like, well, I don't know what to get this person.
Jelly of the Month Club.
Yeah, I mean, might end up being what happens. But, so it can be a little bit stressful. And like having to go into stores, because there's still some things you need to go into stores for, and standing in line for 6 hours while you wait for checkout and, all that kind of fun stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
I guess you're talking about Black Friday.
no, although, yeah, that's always a fun time.
Or you're
That's kind of fun to me, though, actually. is
Not
doing
anymore.
Black Friday shopping.
No.
It's not really
I've
Black
never-
Friday anymore. It's
Yeah, they've kind of changed
the whole
that.
month now.
Just whenever.
I'm actually thinking about going to, is it Home Goods or TJ Maxx or Marshall's, going to places like that.
Just to people watch.
Well, that's fun too.
Yeah,
I like
it
people
is.
watching. But no, like you go in there to get the
store
like
for
gag
y'all.
gifts or the you're going to pass it around gifts kind of a thing. You
Oh,
know, because
yeah.
they're cheap stuff that sometimes are fun.
Their stuff is good.
But like you're standing in those lines forever to check out.
Yeah.
That is true.
On a regular day.
Home
Don't
goods.
do
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
Yeah, can't imagine over the holidays.
I think the other thing that might fall into this category when it says like holiday tasks, just like having to decorate and like that side of people pleasing and perfectionism and having to have it all together for the holidays. I think this might be like the chaos category where all of that falls into that. I think that causes a lot of people stress too. Just trying to get everything taken care of so quickly and, weather affects it or finances or whatever. So I think that could fall into here.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a question for y'all, for all of us, I guess. But I began thinking about this topic because I noticed with like Carson and Meredith, they're beginning to wrestle with and trying to figure all that out. And I could tell, that it was hard. They were wrestling how we're going to do this and figuring it out. And then that makes it hard on us because then we got to figure things out with our parents and all that. But what kind of advice would you guys give to newlyweds or to a couple that's about to get married? They're engaged and they're figuring all this out, beginning to talk about it. What's the advice that you would give them?
I think easy advice would be know each other's expectations on it, specifically on holidays,
Yeah.
and then compromise on what that's going to be, like James said earlier, making sure you have the conversation and not just expect to be places. Cause I know there's a lot of hurt that can happen from that and disappointment, and just kind of alleviating that beforehand. Definitely, just specifically if we're talking about holidays, just, understanding each other's expectations.
Yeah.
David went like a totally deep route with his answer to that question, and what instantly popped into my head was paper plates.
Oh my gosh.
Decorative.
Like,
paper
don't
plates.
try to do like
The TJ
the whole
Maxx paper
fancy
plates.
thing with everything polished and spit shined and, like, get out the good china. Like, no, just paper plates, throw them away. That alleviates some of the dish hassles too.
Yeah.
But that doesn't look cute.
I mean, listen, the other stuff you put around can make it look cute, but like, just, don't try
Help
to
yourself,
go
help
overboard.
yourself.
Don't try to go overboard, because no one's going to remember next month
I might.
or next week whether or not they had a meal at your house on, and I'm using paper plates as a silly example, but nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to remember that. They're going to remember
I think that's a good
coming
example.
together.
No, it is a
They're
good
going
Be
to
the
remember
conversation.
the conversation. They're going to remember all that kind of stuff. And, it's just focus on what's actually important. Is that you're with family, you're with friends, you're doing this because you want to be together, not you want to do this because you want to have the prettiest house and make the biggest impact, because nobody's going to notice.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My guess is many newlyweds aren't going to be hosting, but at the same time, it could be that happened. And focus on the relationship side of things. That's good. Anything else you guys can think of?
I would add in just like learning to let loose of people pleasing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what leads into a lot of the, like, it's hard. It was hard for me to tell my parents, like, we're not going to be here for Christmas. It's hard for them to hear it. I'm the baby.
Yeah.
And like I said, they've always hosted. And so knowing that you can't do it all, and then learning that both of you are making sacrifices. And so, that means that if we're not going to spend the holidays with Michael's extended family in Dallas, then I need to make a point that we find time in our calendar to visit that family in Dallas another time of the year. So just like kind of going out of your way to make sure that that sacrifice is met in some other capacity.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's really good. And that's what we're learning now. Before it was like we were driving down from Toronto and it's like, okay, we're splitting our week in half, 3 days here, 3 days here. And we flip who's getting the actual Christmas day and who's getting the day after type of thing. So now it does get complicated.
Well,
Boxing Day.
do you have any specific advice for those that aren't married? Because our viewer and listener base isn't all married people.
That's true.
So, like, specifically for stress for them, what do you think is a big stressor for someone who's single?
Probably the same thing, depending on their situation. I mean, if they're single and it's just going back to family, their stressors, my guess, are going to be different.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean,
just
before I
dealing
got
with-
married, a big stressor for me was, and again, this kind of stems from holidays where I didn't, before I was married, and after my mom died, is because my family only did things on Sundays and I couldn't go. And so I was alone.
Yeah.
I was alone for a lot of holidays. And so, I say a lot, it wasn't a huge amount of time, but it was like just even holidays in general. It's like, if you're alone, that's kind of stinky, you know? And so it's like, all right, cool. Well, it's Thanksgiving and I literally am not going anywhere because my family's going to do it on Sunday and I can't be there, So it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, cool. What do I do? Am I going to do the stereotypical thing and like, all right, it's Thanksgiving. The only place that's open is a Chinese restaurant in IHOP or a Waffle House, And, so that's the thing is like, this is kind of a piece of advice for them, but kind of not. It's kind of a piece of advice for those people that know people that are single.
Yeah.
Invite them.
Yeah.
Invite them to join you.
Yeah.
Ask if they have, ask that coworker that you work with that isn't married, or even if they are married but they don't have any kids. Know the people around you so that you can be sensitive to the, hey, do you have something to do for Thanksgiving? Why don't you join us? For Thanksgiving. Why don't you join us for Christmas?
Yeah, and I hate to
kind of
get
thing.
like too dark on this conversation, but I feel like there's a lot of things that it's a lot deeper than just your typical going places and eating food and spending time with people, because I think it brings up a lot of stress on depression and loneliness. And as you were saying, there's a lot of hurt in the holidays.
Yep.
Not just for single people, but for married people as well.
Absolutely.
And how would you give advice to those people?
Man, because I think about it a lot from a parent standpoint now, and maybe at some point a grandparent. But I just think I would just say think of the others first, And so if I like your advice for opening your home to others. Think about everyone's circumstances within your family, and try to make some of those accommodations and everything. But for a single person, if it can't be with family, then put effort into building a community, be involved in a community, find time to be with them. I don't know if that's answering your question.
Well, I'm just thinking
I would do a Friendsgiving
Yeah.
and a Friendsmas. Like if you are single, because I've done that.
Yeah.
If you are single and you're not going to be able to be with your family during that time, there are others in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
And there are other people that that are in the same boat as you, and get over the weird shyness of not wanting to say it, but be like, hey, I don't have anything going on this Thanksgiving. Do you guys want to come over to my house and we'll have a Thanksgiving dinner together?
Yeah.
We'll make pizza rolls. Even go all out and make a turkey. Who knows? But do that. Be that. Don't expect someone else to be it for you. I say this to people all the time whenever I hear them say, well, I came to church and nobody said hi to me. Cool. Who did you say hi to? Mm-hmm. Because it works both ways. Maybe you need to be the one saying, hey, David, do you want to come over and we'll celebrate Thanksgiving together? Mm-hmm. Be that person that initiates it. Don't expect someone else to initiate it.
I think for the conversation about holiday grief and depression, what I've observed a lot of people who I know who've gone through this around the holidays is just the way that they distract themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, they'll volunteer with Salvation Army to ring a bell, or they'll end up serving every weekend in the month of December, or even, around Thanksgiving, whatever it is. And so sometimes distraction, I don't know if this is clinical, but is a helpful mechanism. And I think it also brings another perspective and just different insight. And I don't know, it's almost kind of healing maybe in a way, because you are taking a step back from what you would normally do around the holidays. And so you see everything in a new light, and you get to observe the little things that bring people joy. I don't know, just from a different side. And so I think sometimes when you open yourself up to that, it can kind of be a healing process for some of that holiday grief.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like James was saying, it's important to note that if you are going through holiday grief, it's important to note you're not the only one going through these same things. Mm-hmm. We like to put on these facades that we are all put together during the holidays specifically, but it's important for us to kind of meet people where they're at in their grief. Because, there's a lot of people that have lost loved ones that maybe for the first time this year are going into the holidays really, really depressed. Yeah. And I think it's important for us, especially as the church, to meet people where they are and help them in their grief. And like you said, a very practical way to do that is invite them into your family, quote unquote, for a holiday time. And that really helps alleviate the stress of, because not just because you are going through grief, I can imagine a lot of people stress about going through grief. Yeah. Because they're not even in that holiday season, but they're stressing about how they're going to feel during the holiday season. Yeah.
In our family, we always would buy a new game, and it was just the family gift at Christmas. It would still get wrapped, but we'd have it there. And many a times we have had a friend who was going through a difficult time, and it's usually around Christmas. And so we'd invite him over, and then that way that person, they'll open the family gift. So we had no idea that they were coming, no plans, didn't purchase anything for them. And I know Christmas isn't about the gifts, but when you're the only one in the room who doesn't have anything, that kind of doesn't help the grief that you walked in there with. So that gift is always reserved for in case somebody shows up who wasn't expected at our Christmas.
Great
so
idea.
that's just fun little thing you can do. And then, if nobody shows up, somebody from the family can open it. So
yeah. One thing that's not on this poll that surprised me is there was nothing said about divisive conversations like politics or critical family members.
I didn't know if you wanted to get into that, but we had some on our previous week's episode, some good ways to alleviate some of that stress too.
Was that last year at this time?
No, last week.
Last week.
We talked about distrust and stuff, but we also kind of dipped our feet into some politics there.
I mean, just set your expectations. Hey, we're not talking about this. I mean, with most people.
But what if you want to talk about it? and other people want to
Then
talk
you're
about
the
it.
difficult
then you
person.
need to set the ground rules.
And
of,
you
hey,
call the cops
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your fam.
Yeah.
you just set the ground rules of, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you do it, we're stopping the conversation. I mean, a lot of families, for the most part, are going to probably be in agreement, on what they're talking about because they're family. But you do have those wild, crazy cousins or sisters or whatever, Uncle Joey, that doesn't have the same opinion, and they're just going to, start barking and
Yeah.
yada, yada.
And I think it's important not to make those people feel ostracized.
Sure.
Like if there's a couple of black sheep from
Couple
the
of
rest of
Uncle
the
Joeys.
table, then I just make sure that they don't feel like they're no longer part of the family. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. But
Arguing
yeah,
about politics is no reason to destroy relationships.
no, it's not.
I've made a few phone calls to certain family members that are the ones
Beforehand?
who, just said, look,
Here's your
this year
script.
we're making this about Christmas and about the birth of Jesus. We're not going to make this about the latest political issue.
Yeah. I mean, I
that's
bet these holiday seasons, especially coming out of an election, midterm election, is going to be fun.
Every other year, it's either midterm or it's presidential.
Yeah.
It's like they do it on purpose.
Yeah. Those jerks.
Ew. Why could we do our voting like over the summer?
It's all for the money.
Yeah.
Christmas spending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's my
Capitalist
theory.
Stress. That's good.
We're sitting here talking about it. I'm literally just like watching the election results come in because we still don't have the completed results.
As of now.
As
But
of current. Yeah.
it doesn't
We
matter,
will
though.
when this airs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully we've encouraged somebody for the holidays, right?
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I just
Think it's
like
been good?
I feel like we could encourage some people here, but do you have any specific, like, I don't want to get too like Jesus jukey here, but like scripture or anything that comes to mind that can help someone during these
Yeah.
times?
There was two passages that came up in my mind that that talk about several different things. Even though this one's talking more maybe financial, the passage in Matthew 6, where Jesus is saying, "Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life and you will what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more important than food, and the body more important than clothing? Consider the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them." So for those that are dealing with the financial struggles, one, I think most kids, their memories are of playing with cousins and playing board games and having a great time with family. That's my memories. And so if you can't afford the best gifts or whatever else, sometimes simple is best anyways. And so don't worry about those things. And so that was one of them. And then another one's just fear, because anxiety typically comes from thinking of the worst case scenarios,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
hardly ever happen. But we always go there, right?
Right.
And so we think of the worst case scenario. And actually, I found a quote that was from Corrie ten Boom. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's written a couple of books that were great. And she was one of those leading stories that came out of the Holocaust and all that. And so she has a quote that just says, or this was something that she would say to herself when she was feeling a lot of anxiety. "Worry is an old man with bended head carrying a load of feathers which he thinks are lead." And basically what she was saying there is our anxiety, we take something small in our life and we typically make it into this huge thing. And most of the things I worry about tend not to unfold that way. And so, and it's just kind of going back and just trying to be a little bit more realistic with your own expectations, and just making sure that that you have an accurate account of what
And that's
that is.
just
And,
worry about just Christmas holiday stuff, not necessarily worry about.
yeah,
I would hate to think that someone would hear that and think that their worries and anxieties aren't necessarily valid.
Valid, yeah.
Right.
But the fact that there is hope.
yeah,
Yeah, they're valid. They just don't need to necessarily carry the weight
Yeah.
that you're placing on them.
One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 56, 3 and 4. "When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" If you're always worried about what people are thinking, is my home as nice as their home, whatever the dynamics may be, just focus your relationship on God. He's the one that we need to be trying to please, and don't worry about what others are thinking. And so that may be easy to say and hard to put in practice, but I think this is a good reminder.